Okay, this is take number 4. I think I've got it down this time. I think I've got the formula on lock. Um, okay. Hello, and welcome to my 2026 Chicago Regional Retro 1K deck profile. I got first place with Tournelouse on Evil. I did not drop a match. This deck is quite good. I'm going to normally I do like standard deck profiles I've only done, and I kind of go into those assuming that most people who are watching it will know what the cards do. Um, and I can just kind of talk about like why the cards are good in the deck and like why I wanted them in the deck. Uh, However, I know that there is, especially because this is like a first place deck profile. I'm doing like air quotes and like jazz hands right now. Uh, People might watch it and be like, "Oh, well, this like a good jumping off point into retro?" Yes and no. I think I'll get to that at some point. Um, so I know that there's a good chance that you're looking at the names of these cards right now and going, "I know like 5 of these." And that's fair. That's understandable. I'm going to be a little I'm going to talk a little more about like what the cards actually do and stuff, and then we'll talk about like why they're good. So let's start with my character, my starting character, because I do have an additional character in my deck other than my starting character. Tournelouse 1. Tournelouse 1, it's a 7 hand size, 20 health. Before the game begins, search your deck for up to 3 copies of Tournelouse 1 and add them to your stage, and then shuffle. So, essentially, I'm playing a 57 card deck. I'm starting with 60 cards, and then before the game begins, I get my 3 other Tournelouse 1s and put them directly into my stage. And you might be thinking, well, why would I want that? Other than, being a 57 card deck is by itself an advantage. You get more consistency. But there is an additional reason for doing that, and that is the enhance. You add a character from your stage to your card pool to give your attack 4 damage. You're giving yourself +1 progressive to do this. Um, but it does 4 damage is a lot. We've seen in standard Nagoriyuki who gives 4 damage. Reiner 1 or Reiner 3 on the backside that just won Chicago is consistently giving like 4 to 5 damage on the backside onto all his moves. Um, you know, and so 4 damage is a lot. +1 progressive is not nothing. You're not necessarily pressing this on every enhance that you get for a couple reasons. But it is a real cost. And then once per turn, your gauge attack gains throw. Now, what the heck is a gauge attack? Well, let me show you. This here is lightning shot. You can ignore all the other text on this card. We'll get to that eventually. This is a card it's a gauge attack. It is gauge 3. Gauge is an enhance ability. The attack is gauge 3. You say enhance gauge 3, and it means if this attack deals at least 3 damage, you search your deck and/or discard pile for a character that shares a name with your starting character, and you add it to your stage. You put it directly in there. No check required. No nothing. It just goes straight onto your board. Excuse me. Um, so and that's not gated by anything. You give it a throw and it does 3 on half. That you go get your move. That's perfect. That's what you want. That's what you want to happen. Um, so you start with all 4 of these. Well, what are you gauging for? Well, I'll tell you what you're gauging for. You're gauging for Tournelouse 2. Tournelouse 2. The other ones start in your stage, but these ones just start in your deck, and you have to go gauge for them or find them yourself. Tournelouse 2 is one of the few character cards with a keyword ability. He might be the only character card with a keyword ability. Is Breaker 1. If you block with this guy, Breaker 1. You get to laugh at your opponent because you just buddy blocked them, and their next check is -1. Speaking of which, Tournelouse 2 has an enhance and a response. The way that it works is that if you have any number of copies of Tournelouse 2 attached to your Tournelouse 1, your starting character gains those abilities. And it's not like if you get 2 of these guys, you don't get 2 copies of the ability. You can't use the enhance twice for enhance step. You still only get the 1. It just counts as having you've 2 guys in your stage, and you can throw one away into your card pool for 4 damage if you want and stuff like that. But enhance your opponent's next check to play a card gets -1 for each character card in your card pool. So we're already putting characters in our card pool with our character. So we give it +4 damage. Then we give their next check to play a card -1. It's basically like +1 speed. But you can also do this on your opponent's turn. On your opponent's turn, you can go, I add a character from my stage to my card pool. My attack gets +4 damage. Your attack gets nothing. And then I can go, your next check is -1. And that does come up. That is pretty cool. And then response, after a character card enters or leaves your stage, your opponent flips one of their foundations. So if you've heard me talk about it at any small amount, I like the 7th Cross IP a lot. It's a very normal amount. I like the 7th Cross IP a lot. And I was like, I want to play these guys. These guys are cool as hell. And so I saw this guy, and I'm like, whoa. You give your gauge attack throw to guarantee your stacking, and you give your opponent's next check -1, and you're making them flip foundations. This is like, you could play a really cool control deck with this, because I'm a little gremlin. I'm a little goblin creature. I love control decks. I wanna sit there and laugh at my opponent while they can't do anything for 20 turns, and then they die to my throws. My inevitability on my face. That's awesome. This deck that I've constructed is a turn 2 aggro deck. Not very many of my games. I don't know about not very many. I wasn't really counting, but I would say at least half of my games ended on turn 2. Um, and the main reason that that is possible is thanks to 2 cards. There's exactly 2 cards that really are like, if you're gonna play Tournelouse and you're gonna do it on evil and you're gonna play a deck like this, if you're putting any 2 cards in your deck besides Tournelouse 1 and Tournelouse 2, it's going to be Allurophobia and Call of the Dreamlands. Like, well, what do these cards do? Allurophobia is an attack. It's a 4 difficulty. It's only a 3 mid 2, and it's got powerful 2, which is cool, but enhance. This attack gets +2 damage for each character in your stage, and +1 speed for each character in your discard pile. And you can enhance to remove a card from your stage, double this attack's damage. All right, double is wild. Double is wild. The other card, Call of the Dreamlands. This is an action, a 1/5. Response remove. After your opponent makes a check, that check gets -X. X equals the number of characters in your stage. If your opponent fails that check, they draw a card, and failing that check does not end the combat phase. It also has this nifty little form on it. Your next 4 non-attack cards ignore progressive difficulty. Before this weekend, I had literally never used that ever. I used it multiple times this weekend. It is way better than you think. So why are, I mean, I astute viewers might already be seeing where this is going. So let me just paint a scene for you. It's turn 2. You turn 1, you built 3 foundations, your opponent builds 4 foundations, and they pass back to you. And your hand has, let's say, an Allurophobia and 2 Call of the Dreamlands. And they're a 6-hander with 28 health. You play Allurophobia. You use the enhance, it gets 2 damage for each character in your stage. Gets +8 damage because you have 4 characters in your stage that just start in play. That puts it up to 10 damage. Doesn't matter if it doesn't get any speed. If you're lucky and you check some Tournelouse 2s, then it gets 1 speed and stuff, and that's cool. Then you use your Tournelouse enhance, and you add a character from your stage to your card pool, and that gives it 4 damage. So now it's a 3 mid for 14. And then you remove one of your foundations, whatever, and you double the damage. It's a 3 mid for 28. You say, this is a 3 mid for your life total. Catch. So your opponent goes, all right, I'm going to block with my +2 mid block. And they check a 5. They've got their character and 4 foundations. You go, respond on your check, Call of the Dreamlands. You checked a 2. Respond on your check with your other Call of the Dreamlands. You checked a -1, and you only have 5 cards to pass it. You can fail this check if you want, and if you do, you draw 2 whole cards. But you're dead. And this in combination with, you play a gauge attack first and you get a character into your stage and you make it a throw, so you get some chip damage in to get down the guys that have more than 28 health. But that is the core gameplay loop of this deck. That is the thing you want to be doing every game, and this deck is pretty solidly built to try and do that every game. You absolutely don't do it every game. You could totally build this deck to just say, I'm doing nothing else but this every game, but it would be worse. I think the ability to do other stuff is like why this deck is better than just, I do exactly one thing every game. Because it certainly does do one thing every game, and if your opponent knows ball, they know that there's going to be an effective 9 mid 28 coming at their face turn 2 if you got like mildly lucky. Um, but it can do other stuff. So those are the two cards I think we need to talk about first before we can talk about any of the other cards in the deck. Because that is like the backbone of why you would want to play Tournelouse versus something like Akuma or Violent Ken, is that he has really good interaction because he gets to be on the evil symbol, and the way that this specific combo works is extremely hard to combat when you're even like mildly lucky. And there it absolutely it is it you can put yourself in situations, or you can draw into hands where you literally can't lose. Like there is no conceivable universe where your opponent doesn't die that turn. Um so I'm just gonna go, now that we've covered the two cards I think are very important to talk about. I'm just gonna go down the list card by card and explain what the card does and why it's in the deck. First up, Instability is a zero diff. It is technically the only zero diff in the deck, but there's three more in the action slot. Um, it's a 0/6 with no block mod. You can't block with it. Response: destroy this foundation. After your opponent plays an ability that would decrease the damage of an attack, cancel its effects. Playable while committed. So response: tenacious destroy. After your opponent plays an ability that would decrease the damage of an attack, cancel its effects. Does not say non-character. Does not say increase the damage of your attack. This card cancels a lot of stuff, and I think it's somewhat relevant in standard, but is way more relevant in retro to understand how cancels work, which is that if an ability can do something, even in like even if it says like, like enhanced draw card, if it's Tuesday, March 17th, 2045, this attack is -1 damage. Even if it's April 20th, 2026, you can use instability to cancel that. Because it could give minus damage, it is treated as if it does, and that lets cards like instability respond to it. This card, I only own two of these. This is there's I I have a slight reputation as having a large retro collection, which is not untrue, but there are still a good chunk of cards that I would love to own but don't. And I only own two of these. If you have two more and you want to get rid of them, talk to me. Um, but I would have played four if I had four for this weekend, but I'm actually quite happy with the two. Um, the no block is quite brutal, and I think when I was like, oh, I want to play four of this, I was overestimating how many times I would want to use this effect. I did get to use it to cancel like a Roman cancel yellow or a Mona normalcy, and it can cancel stuff like what am I thinking of? Like Siegfried Enhance on your Alurophobia, which locks the damage and stuff like that. Um, or like confronting Jeddah and stuff like that to and just it cancels a lot of things, but on turn two, your opponent doesn't always have stuff to do things like that. So I think the two copies really is the sweet spot for this card. Um, that's about really all that needs to be said about it. Next up for the foundations, four copies of New Empress of Netherrealm. This one's a lot less complex. E flip, lose 3 health, draw a card. It is the freest draw on symbol. The only other one I would consider is there's a card from Turtles that's a 1/5. It's a +3 low block. I cannot remember the name of it. Maybe it's like Catching Air or something, but it's E flip. If your attack deals damage, draw a card, and that's quite. Normally, you don't want to say like, "Here's my called shot," but when you can give any attack you want throw, it makes sense. I'm gonna flip this and say if it deals damage, draws a card. Okay, well I'm gonna give this throw, so I know it's gonna deal damage. But this is the one I end up going on with. Going second being able to draw an extra card can be quite nice when you really want to build out a wide stage against these decks that can go crazy on turn two. Because this is by no means the only like aggro deck that can kill you on turn two in retro. There are quite a lot of those, um, and there are quite a lot of good ones. But and then it's also got Desperation enhanced. Look at the top card of your opponent's deck. Desperation means you have to be at less than your half of your starting health total. So like for this guy, if I was at 9 health or less, because I would have to be at less than half, I could use that enhance. But yeah, this is just the freest draw. Losing 3 health in your 20 health guy is a lot. There were certainly game states where I was like, I had to weigh between losing 3 health and drawing the card, but it really did end up that most of the time drawing the card was the best thing to do. And going first when you don't really care about your opponent's turn because you're hoping they don't get there. Sometimes you just need one more attack to do anything, and that is what this will get you. Sometimes you're playing 57 cards, so your deck is consistent, but it's not that consistent. We do need to draw more cards sometimes, and this is I think the best way to do it to build the foundation base in a sane way. This, I would say, was the best foundation in my deck by a solid margin this weekend. It was the Azure Nightmare. It's got a lot of text on it, but essentially what it is that whenever you discard it, that includes reviewing it, your opponent loses a health. If you commit it due to your opponent's stun ability, your opponent loses 2 health. Those burns can't kill your opponent, but it can put them to 1. And then it's got an effect, enhance once per turn, Tenacious, discard a card to ready it. And it checks a 6. This card would be quite good if it checked a 4, but it checks a 6. Like, wow. Wow. This card is like, the dream is always going to be, I play Alurophobia, it's for your life total, I Dreamlands your block, I win. But sometimes you have to string out. Sometimes you don't draw that one and you draw 3 other attacks, and you're like, well, I can still kill you if I check 5s. And this gives you that buffer, if they breaker you. This gives you that buffer to get around that. And the stun hate effect absolutely came up round 2. I played against a Xianghua, which is she's a Soul Calibur character that basically lets you reversal your 3 damage moves, and it gives your 3 damage moves stun 1. And she's got this asset that upgrades that to stun 3. So on their turn they went play a move, stun 3 you, and I tapped 2 of these, burned them for 4. She only has 19 health. Then she's down to 15. I go back to my turn. I play a poke move before my Alurophobia, and she blocks it, and then responds Xianghua. I'll play a move and stun 3 me. I burn her for 4. Ready 2 of my cards. I don't even think I had Alurophobia in this game. I just went like, here's a move, they take half, and then here's Lightning Torture. It's a throw for 11 damage, and this kills you. It is it especially against the 7-handers, but against anybody it adds up fast if they're doing stuff like that, playing real fast and loose into the burn. But the like discard burn one and the incidental burn on the review, it does come up. Alurophobia baseline only does 28 damage, only in air quotes. It is it gives you that reach that you might not have to deal 1 extra damage. But it's like, I don't know if I can pass the check to play this, or I can say like, I don't know if they'll, I can make them take this Alurophobia and put them down to 2, but I don't have any way to deal that last bit of damage or put them down to 1. It's like, well, if during that enhanced step I discard an Azure Nightmare and I put them to exactly 28 or whatever the number is, and then this move kills them exactly now, which is great. I played this deck also in Louisville, and I went the Louisville retro event, and I went 4-2. I think both of my losses were to me not. The deck was not built the same. It was I'd say solidly worse. But this is excuse me. I missed a lot of lines to kill people off of not really realizing that I could use the burn the way that I did, or way that I could have, to get that extra reach. This is, like I said, this was the best foundation in my deck, I would say, by a significant margin. This is a card I might have played more of if I had more. I only own 1 regular copy. Well, no, let me rephrase. That's not true. That's a lie. I own 4 regular copies. Not this promo copy that is a misprint on it. Um, I Pippa was borrowing 3 of them, so I only had 1 to play with. Um, this second enhance is supposed to be a response. If you own summer promo Orphan Alchemist, by the way, I want them. I don't own them, and I would love to buy them from you. Or like, I don't know. I don't have a ton of stuff to trade because I like to own everything. But if you have stuff you're looking for, I can take a look. But yeah, if you own these and you don't want to own them anymore, hit me up on Discord. Uh, but this is a card. It checks a 6. It could check a 5 and still be quite good, but it checks a 6. Are you seeing a theme with these Soul Calibur foundations? Um, uh, this is much like Azure Nightmare. This is one of the good ones. Um, E-flip reveal the top card of your deck is fine. You know, if you're playing through a line and you're like, well, if I check a 5, I kill him. But if I don't check a 5, he might just kill me in the backswing, and I can play defensive enough. You just look at the top card of your deck. It also has this response. After your opponent plays a non-character ability that causes 1 or more cards to leave your deck or discard pile, cancel it. You may draw a card. This cancels less than you'd expect, but more than you'd think. It is, I think you might, but my perception of this card was people were like, this is one of the broken ones. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. You know, it cancels stuff and draws a card. That's nuts. It doesn't cancel as much as you'd necessarily want it to, but it does cancel stuff and draw a card, and it's a 6 check. It's a +2 low. Like, the stats on it are crazy, and the text on it is good. People were out here putting number 10 Pro Hero in their deck just because it had good stats. Imagine if that card had good text too. You know, like kind of like that. I don't necessarily know if I would play more than one because I don't really know where the room would come from. I will also say this is a +2 low block. I'm going to scroll down here, and some people, if you are sensitive to bad block zone ratios, I request that you avert your eyes and mute the video because there's only 8 low blocks in this deck. We're only playing the good ones, and only 8 of those have low blocks. That's just how it is. But one of the other ones that I'm playing as a low block is Incubating. This is a standard card. You guys probably know what this one does. It is remove a card from your discard pile for -1 speed. In the same vein as Azure Nightmare, letting you cheat on both offensive and defensive turns with extra foundations. This is kind of the same thing, where it's like, if we're going second, we really just need a way to survive to our turn 2, and then our deck is pretty dang good at killing literally anybody on turn 2. This is a card that can be, especially against these decks that are like these other aggro decks that can play upwards of 3-4 attacks on a turn. This could effectively amount to like 4 foundations in a turn, and we don't really care about what stuff we're removing because we're not going to get it back as long as it's not a card named Tournelouse. So you can just ditch like the actions or literally whatever that you check, and say I can block easier now, which is great stuff. It is quite good. I think if you wanted to cut some number of these for some number of Orphaned Alchemists or any other, you need some low blocks. I'll be 100% real. You do need some low blocks. So I would not go any lower than 8, but you do need some low blocks. If you want to cut these for other low blocks, I would not say that's wrong, but I don't think it's right. And those are all my 1 diffs. 2 diffs, Wisdom of Castor. This is a Gemini Man card. It's a 2/4 unique. E-commit, this attack is -2 speed, -1 damage to each character in your staging area. In most characters, this card is not very good. Unique 2/4, -2, -1, and you have to like work pretty hard to make it be anything better than that. But in this guy, at turn 1, this is -8, -4. And it can be more. It could be -16, -8 if the game goes that long or your opponent is asleep at the wheel and has 70 HP. It is in a slot that I think is like kind of the same thing with Incubating. You do need some defense for when you go second. And for when you have like a mediocre draw and you can't really kill them. Like you're playing against Scorpion, you don't really want to hit them to like 12 because then you've done all their work for them and all their moves have 6 damage and they just like obliterate you. So getting to build out and say like like build you like build 3 and hold 4 and say like I will live on, excuse me, I will live to my next turn. It is quite good. I think if you wanted to make this like confronting Jeddah or some other defensive piece that is in a similar vein, I would not blame you for that. But I like this one a lot. I think being able to essentially go like, here's one less move I have to block, or here's one move I definitely get to block is quite good. Um, and yeah, that's about all we got to say about this one. Next one, one copy of Outworld's Eris. This is the sixth of our 8 low blocks. It's got 2 abilities. It's a 2/5, too low. Remove, lose X health, add a asset or foundation from your opponent's stage to their hand, X that card's difficulty. Essentially, enhance, remove. You choose one of their assets or foundations, lose health equal to its difficulty, and put it back in their hand. If they have like a moment of normalcy, you can play a move, play a different move, or you can just like, you play your Allurophobia, first enhance, put that moment of normalcy back in their hand, and then you make it huge. It also has a cool effect. Lose X health after deck is played, it gets minus X to its stun rating. They play a stun 1 move, you lose 1 health, now it's a stun 0 move. It's just a good one. I think if you wanted to play more than one, for a while I really wanted to put the second one in, but I just couldn't find the room. It is when you're locking yourself to 57 cards and like 40 of them at minimum are hard locked in. It is quite difficult to find room for this stuff. You're at minimum locked in with your 4 Tournelouses, your 4 Tournelouse 2s, your 4 Alluraphobias, and your 4 Dreamlands. And the rest of your attacks all kind of have to be gauge attacks. So it's the fine tuning this deck gets pretty hard. You can really sit there for a long time and kind of agonize over what do I play, what do I not play. And I did that. that is basically what I did the Wednesday before Chicago. Another one that you might be like, if you know retro cards, you might be like, you're only playing one of this card. This is a very good card, Face of a Monster, that I'm only playing one of. All of the abilities on it are once per turn. It has response once per turn. After an attack is played, you can give it -1 speed. You can lose a health to give it another -1 speed, so effectively -2 speed. It has a deadlock form. Once per turn, your opponent discards a card, and Desperation Enhance once per turn changes the zone's attack to any other zone. That Desperation Enhance works on your moves and your opponent's moves. So on your turn, if you're in Desperation, like I play my Allurophobia, and I'm like, oh, I know this guy's got mid blocks for days because that's how his deck is built. He's playing Remulus or whatever. I'm gonna make this guy a low, so that he has to at least take half, and stuff like that. Or on their turn, it's like I only got 8 low blocks in my deck. I'm gonna make this low move into a mid and block with my Tournelouse 2, so that you break her 1 and I get my 0 mid block. It is just, a good one. Honestly, if you wanted to cut this one too, I wouldn't be that cut up about it. I do think it's good enough that the first copy is worth playing. This is for sure one of the good ones, in addition to like, Azure Nightmare, Orphaned Alchemist, Outworld's Eris. These are the good ones, I'd say. But yeah, that's kind of all there really is to say about this card, is that it's just really solid. It's a bunch of good effects that are all stapled onto one card in one convenient package. Next up is Evil Eye. This is a Tournelouse card from 7th Cross, and there's only really like one other character I can think of that would want this card around. This card in your deck. Aside from the fact it's a 2/5 that says all of the abilities are playable while committed, so they're both tenacious. You can flip it, return this attack to its printed speed. Tenacious flip, return to printed speed. If they've got like you're getting like stunned out and your opponent has like a big move that's like, like Mechanical Monster, for example. That's a standard card. But, Mechanical Monster gets speed for each of your committed foundations. Well, I'm stunned out, but I'm going to flip this and say back to 3 speed, and now I can block. But the real meat of this card in this deck is the bottom enhance. Remove a character from your hand or card pool to draw a card. The dream is always going to be, I draw Allurophobia and a gauge move. I play the gauge move. I throw you down to 28. I use my Allurophobia. I deal 28 damage to you. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you have to Rube Goldberg together like 30 damage from a bunch of moves that you can barely pass. And this is a great way to do that. It is a way to circumvent the cost of adding 4 damage, like adding character to your card pool. Now, removing one means you'll never get it back. There's cards you can play to get them back, but that's not really worth it. We're not worried about it. The game's not going to go that long where it's going to matter. But it is it is quite strong to go like, here's my move. It has 4 damage. I remove this and draw a card. Here's my move. It has 4 damage. I remove this and draw a card. Like you can do some crazy stuff. This is just a very, very good Tournelouse card. I'm only playing 3 because the second copy is significantly worse than the first one. Whereas the 4 ofs I'm playing, Incubating and Azure Nightmare and New Empress, are foundations that it's like multiple copies is extremely useful no matter what. I certainly want the first copy, but getting the second one is much less useful than say than the first Face of Monster, the first Outworlds era, stuff like that. Next up is another standard card, Battle Preparations. I was thinking about this deck because I played it in Louisville and I was like, this deck is pretty good and it's pretty consistent. Can we make it more consistent? And I was just kind of scrolling through Ultra, basically looking for stuff that picks up from your discard pile. Because I'm like, well, what if I check my Allure-phobia and want to pick it up? And I stumbled back upon Battle Preparations. This is a card I've known about this card because it's in Standard. But I never really thought about it in Tournelouse. But, if turn 1 you're building out and you check an Allure-phobia, and turn 2, and you build a Battle Preparations, and then turn 2, you start your turn, you play a Gauge move, you give it Throw, it deals damage because it's a throw, you respond Battle Preparations, discard a card, and pick up your Allure-phobia. And now, all of a sudden, you've got your Bing Bang 28 damage move. It could be more than 28, by the way. I keep calling it a 28 damage move because that's just what it is, but it can be more. I will talk about in the full tournament report I guess I'm going to do. I did send it for 36 damage at somebody once, and you can absolutely get that number higher. And then last up, One Moment of Normalcy. This is just one of the good ones. Airship should be in this deck, huh? There's a reason I wanted no 3 diffs, but this deck should absolutely be playing Airship. I would probably cut the face of the monster for an Airship. And that's what I got. That's my take. Notably, cards that don't pass checks are a little scary because you basically just want to pass 2 checks and win the game. And so if you check double 3s, you get sad. But Airship is worth it. We're gonna move on to the attacks. Or I guess we'll do these 2 assets. These are both standard cards. Team Dr. Ichigaki is just basically cancel anything. Between the action suite and instabilities and dreamlands and the actions and instability, essentially you have a pretty good cover of stuff that deals with your Allure-phobia. But this is just for if you draw it and you build it, this beats that one thing that none of those beat. It's just kind of good, and then of course one team hero. I don't think the second one is ever correct. I think it's the best foundation in your discard pile normally is just committing to pass a check because we're only playing to turn 2. It is certainly better than the second, third, or fourth copy of any foundation in my deck that I'm playing, but it's not something that's oh yeah, I need multiples of this because I have multiple broken foundations I'm going to tutor that are integral to my game plan. It's most of the time it's all right, I'm on my turn 2. What's the best foundation in my discard pile right now? All right, hand it over. Every once in a while, you can get the dream of you tutor Battle Preparations, then you tutor Allure-phobia, and you're like, oh my god, I played a Battle Preparations that's a 1 high and checks a 5. But yeah, Team Hero's broken, and if you can put it in your deck, you should. And then let's go to the actions. If you're not familiar with Retro, you probably don't know Revoke. And if you know any Retro at all, you definitely know what Revoke does. It's got two effects. It's 0/5, no block, and it's got two effects, and they're both broken. Response: after your rival plays enhance ability, cancel its effects, remove this card. That is any enhance on my zero diff action, cancel it. That's crazy. That's nuts, right? Any enhance. They press their Allurophobia enhance to give it a bunch of damage. Revoke. It's stuck at 2 now, and you look really dumb. Um, there's plenty of stuff you can cancel. Nick Reagan enhance, remove for cost. Well, now you don't get to do that. You don't get to get your stats or your enhance. Don't you look dumb? It cancels characters. It cancels foundations. It cancels assets. It cancels actions. Cancels any enhance ability. It's crazy. And first form. Your foundations get -1 difficulty for this combat phase. During in phase, build this card face down. It's basically a zero diff that you play at the start of your build string instead of the end of it. So you go first form revoke on a 0, and then you play, let's say you play your moment of normalcy. It would be on a 3, but it gets -1 difficulty. So it's on a 2, and it's a zero diff that you play at the end of your string, or at the beginning of your string instead of your end of your string that ignores progressive. Kind of. It might have no block, but this card certainly does have 2 perfectly good modes on it. We've already talked about Call of the Dreamlands. I'll talk about it a little more when I get to one of the attacks in particular. But this is it's just really good. It's just okay. I just paused the recording. Where was I? Dreamlands. This is a good one. We're gonna talk about it more later. We've already kind of talked about it. The other one that I think if there's any 3 cards you should know about in retro, if you're just gonna go like, I just want to play retro just to have fun, I'm gonna play my standard deck. If there's 3 cards you should know about, 2 of them are, one's Revoke, and one of the other ones is Taguro Brothers. The third one is not on the evil symbol, it's Bang. But Taguro Brothers is another action. It's a 1/4, 2 mid block. It's a static. After you play this card, you can either remove it or draw a new card. Response: after an ability is played in an asset or foundation, cancel its effects and destroy that card. Your opponent's got a pesky incubating, and they keep minusing your speed. Well, they press that button one time, you go Taguro Brothers. Not only do you not get your minus speed, I blow up your incubating, and I can either remove this and say I ignore progressive, or if I don't care about that, I can just draw a new card. Also works when you block with it. You block with Taguro Brothers. It's a +2 mid block. You can either remove it, or you can just draw a new card. This card is so ridiculous. This card you could check a 3, and I'd still be playing it. But it checks a 4. That's kind of a general theme of the broken retro cards. It's like this card could check worse, and I'd still play it, but it doesn't. It's not often that you see a card where you're like, this is absolutely ludicrously broken, and it's appropriately control valued, unless it's a 1 check. But anyways, let's get on the attacks. We've already talked about 4 Allurophobia. The rest of our attacks are all gauge attacks, so we can give them throughout. The first one, we'll talk about Netherstorm first. This is from Tournelouse's kit, from 7th Cross. It's his ultra rare. It's a 5/3, 3 high 6. It's a reversal, and it has gauge 6, so it has to deal at least 6 damage. It's got a static. While this card is in your card pool, your character cards don't count towards progressive difficulty. So normally, you're giving +4 damage to your moves, and the only way to really cheat that would be with Evil Eye. You remove them, but then you're losing, if you have Tournelouse 2, you're losing the value of -1 to your check, really stacking up, With this, you get to ignore that, and you get to say, yeah, I've got 3 characters in my card pool that don't count towards progressive, and I'm going to use Tournelouse 2 for -3 to your check on every enhanced step. In addition, it is, add a character card from your discard pile to your card pool. Add one of your opponent's face down foundation to your hand, and it adds this cost. So if you wanted to, you could just add a character in for no effect. You could just say, there's a character in my discard pile, I'm going to add it to my card pool, and now I can use my Tournelouse 2 to give your next check -1. Or you can use the enhance on this card. Your opponent's extra play card gets -1 of each character in your card pool. It's the exact same text, and it's just this is just really good. I'm on 3 because the space is airtight in this deck. You really got to pick and choose your favorites. And I think if you said you're insane, you should play 4 copies of the card, I'd say, yeah, that's fair. And I'd ask you what you'd cut. And I think you'd have a hard time answering. And now let's go over the rest of all the attacks are from Suzaku, from the original Yu Hakusho set, all from his kit. Pretty much every card in Suzaku's kit is crazy. If you're ever playing a character that stacks and they have the air, evil, or order symbol, it's going to be really hard to justify not playing it on that symbol instead of another one. You can, absolutely, but it's going to be hard because these Suzaku cards are quite good. Um, Lightning Shot, 4 diff, 4/3, 4 mid 4. It's got gauge 3, so that's deals 3 damage. Response card pull. After your opponent readies or one or more foundations to their have effect, flip one of them. That's kind of flavor text, but also kind of not. You know, they ready their Azure Nightmare and you flip it. And there's plenty of other good cards in Retro that ready themselves or other cards. That's not once per turn, and it's got no cost. So while this card is in your card pool, whenever they're doing their readying shenanigans, just flip all their stuff. So if they're doing it multiple times or whatever, you can just say, stop doing that. The real good part of this card, Enhance. This attack gets stun X. X equals the number of characters in your stage and discard pile up to a maximum of 3. Similar to Wisdom of Caster, you read this card and you're like, this is a 4 mid 4 stun 1. That kind of sucks. In most decks, that's true. And this guy on turn 2, this is a 4 mid 4 stun 3. Stun 3 on my 4 diff. Wow, that's crazy. That's so strong. It is. And against the decks that have like minus speed on face or get to really build out wide, because one of the main weaknesses of this deck is that your best draws are beaten by one mid block that they can pass. So in the games where you have to use a character and then use a character for damage, but then you don't get your gauge or something, and you're stuck with less characters in your stage for your Dreamlands, getting that stun 3 to be able to say like it's basically 3 speed on your Alurophobia because they have 3 less things to commit, is quite powerful. Another thing I want to mention regarding all of the gauge moves in Alurophobia, because this card exists, if your opponent knows what's going on, they're gonna act like you have this. They're just gonna, because they can't not. You can't just, unless it's your literal only line, you can't just go, well, I hope he doesn't have it. Because 57 card deck, it's more likely than you'd think that I do have it. And if you're playing like I don't and I do, you're dead. There's no like, oh, well, I take a bunch of damage, but you're just dead. This is your whole health bar. So the gauge moves have a weird like upside to them where they want to block them to not give you more characters. But if they block them, not only are they using cards out of their hand where it's like you can run them out of blocks and then Alurophobia, but that's also basically +1 speed to your Alurophobia. It's crazy. This deck is so broken. Next up from the Suzaku kit, this is the other no block in our deck. It's Lightning Torture. 2 mid 4 throw, gauge 4. There are at least 2 characters in your stage or discard pile. Stack gets +3 damage. Basically, in this deck, this card is guaranteed gauge unless they have minus damage. In the original version of this deck, I was playing Spaceland, which is a 3-diff foundation that says mill 2, your attack gets a damage. And I was playing it because, giving this attack -1 damage makes it feel really bad because then you have to use your character and then you're going, you don't get to have more characters, plus you're giving yourself +1 prog. But in general, the way that this deck plays, that's fine. And then kind of having I don't think you ever want more than 2 of these in this deck because you can't afford any more no blocks. We're already playing like an egregious amount. 11 in essentially 57 is a large number of no blocks, but they are just that good. But being able to go like, here's a throw move, here's a move, and they think they're safe because they have like good block zone coverage and they're able to block whatever, but they're at a low health total. Then you go, here's a Lightning Torture. It's a throw for 11 damage and you're dead on half. It catches people off guard. It is, in addition to being a good setup to guaranteed get an extra character in play if they have no minus damage, it is just a good catch them with kind of catch them with their pants down. It's like, oh well, I thought I was safe because I can block stuff, but this is a throw even though you've already used your once per turn. We've already talked about Alurophobia and Netherstorm. This is the only other attack I'm playing 4 copies of. It is Storm of Torment. It's got Desperation 4, which means attacks with Desperation rating is that, like, if you're at Desperation, that's the difficulty of it. So instead of a 5 diff, it'd be a 4 diff. 5 min 5 with gauge 4. It's got safe, so they can't reversal it. I forget that sometimes, but this card has safe. They can't reversal it. I'm sure I've in my career let people reversal my Storm of Torment because I forget it has safe. It's got 2 enhances. You can discard a momentum to search your deck for a character and just put it straight into your hand or your stage, which is fine. In games that go to turn 3, this comes up because you're sending throw moves. You're probably hitting them for you're probably getting momentum because you're probably dealing damage. The real reason this card is the only other 4X is because it has this enhance. If there are at least 2 characters in your stage or discard, clear this after it resolves. And in most decks, it'd be like, well, you'd have to hit with another gauge move first, and then you're playing this on a 6. In this deck, this is a 5 mid 5 that clears itself. There are plenty of decks that would kill for that. There are plenty of aggro decks that don't get to do that would kill for that. It is also it is one of Netherstorm is the only gauge move. Well, I guess technically Prism Storm Torment, the next one, but it's the only gauge move that we're playing that's not Prism Storm. That is that you can't go make it a throw, give it 4 damage. This guarantees your gauge on half. It's just the hot hands in this deck truly are unbeatable. Like I think if you were to sculpt a perfect turn 1 hand into a perfect turn 2 hand, it's very hard to find a defensive hand that would stop the full untethered might of a perfect Tournelouse hand. So that's pretty much all the attacks. And then we've also got 2 of this card, Prism Storm Torment. You're like, this is a 7 diff. What is this doing here? This isn't really like you're talking about this is like you either play Allurophobia and you dome them for their whole life total, or you can like string out. What is the 7 diff doing here? Well, it's a 7 high 7 with gauge 7 and deadlock stun 7. I've never gotten to use that in this character. In some other characters I have, but not in this character. It's got this cool static. If it's the 7th card you attempt to play this turn, it passes and get +7 speed. And it's got enhance. Add all characters that share a name with your starting character from your discard pile to your stage. That enhances is not really it. If you use it, it comes up, but it's not exactly relevant. The main thing is that like my game 3 in finals was my line to kill was because I had played turn 2 and I'd gotten him down to like I had reversaled him on his turn down to 18, and then I on my turn 3 gotten him down to fairly low life total, and so I was able to go using the Call of the Dreamlands form. I had 3 of them in my hand, which would be awesome if I had Allurophobia, but I didn't, so I had to go play move. I used revoke, I think, for the 3rd card, or no, I went move, and then I went Dreamlands, Foundation as my 6th card that ignores progressive, and then Prism Storm of Torment, guaranteed passes because it's my 7th card. This is a 14 high for 11. It's notably it's the 7th card you attempt to play, not the 7th card that you play. So if they reversal you and you fail a block, that still counts as attempting to play a card, and that comes up a lot because there are reversal decks is like an entire category of decks that there is I think they're fun. There's a whole group of retro gamers that are like reversal gamers. You got like your Karamas and Xianghuas and stuff like that. And Kuwabara is kind of adjacent. He's playing some good reversals. Pretty much anyone on the water symbol can get away with some good reversals. And there's other decks that do it too. Vespera. And so like I played my round 2, like I said, was against Xianghua, and this was actually the game I lost against this person because I discarded the wrong card. They went block with a breaker 2 card and then reversal me with Xianghua response. And I could have failed the block to clear my breaker 2 and give me an extra card I attempted to play for Prism Storm. But I missed that, and so they lived. And I think that game I just kind of like ran out of gas and couldn't defend well enough against stun 3 on everything. Um, but yeah, this card has it's never really going to be worth the third or fourth copy because you can't trigger it in every hand. Sometimes you're gonna end up with like 4 attacks, and you just realistically can't play them all if you check at least 1 3. You're gonna end up with a bunch of expensive foundations where it's like, I play this attack, I check a 3. I play this attack, I check a 4. And now it's like, well, if I check too many 3s, this is just gonna be a 7 high 7, and I need my character enhanced to make it lethal. Um, oh, another card. Airship was a card I wanted to play. Another card was Final Wars because you make it a throw and it just guarantees draws a card. So that's another card I would want to put in this deck. But again, it's the room is rough. I'm not sure what I'd cut yet. I think Face of a Monster is probably on the chopping block, and I don't really want to cut Wisdom of Caster for another aggressive card. It might be the Team Doctor just because that card doesn't pass checks. But yeah, that's the main deck. The sideboard, I'm playing the fourth Revoke. There are matchups where Tagura Brothers is not that useful, so you can just swap that in. I'm playing the third Tagura Brothers. There are matchups where Revoke isn't that useful, so you just swap that in. And sometimes you have to bring them both in, and you have to side out like some foundations. I did that once. I sided in, I think it was against Akuma. I sided in the third Tagura Brothers, and I left the third Revoke, and I just took out a foundation. I'm playing 4 copies of Flame Aura. We're gonna get to this other card last. Um, this is another one of the good ones. It is a 5 mid 4 with Desperation 4. It is a 1 high block, and when attempting to block with this card, you reduce the speed of your opponent's attack to 0. If you guys know Plus Ultra, this card had that card had the same text, but as a +5 block mod. This one is a +1 block mod. There's no room for this card in the main deck, I think, because you really want to be optimizing your turn 2 Goldfish. And this card doesn't really do that. It's got 4 damage. It's not a gauge move. It's a 5 diff. It's a defensive trick more than anything. And it's also got this static. Well, this card is in your card pool. Your opponent loses 1 health after a block is successfully played. I have killed people with that static before. But it's just when I want to say, literally every game that I was on the draw, I sided these in for my 4 worst attacks in air quotes. Not literally every game actually. There was against the Xianghua and against the Reiner 3 that I played. I did not side them in, but against most decks that are sending like multiple 5 to 6 speed moves, being able to go like, I blocked this first one, I blocked this second one. It's like, well, my stage is tapped. And my opponent's like, well, the only way he blocks this is if he has a Flame Aura. So I'm going to go for it. And then they have the Flame Aura, and you get really sad. It's the strongest defensive hand trap in the format, I think. Yeah, that's got to be true. It's got to be the strongest defensive hand trap in the format. It is just a free block when your opponent absolutely would never expect you to be able to block. There's like nothing you can really do to cancel it because it's a static. It's nothing like if you seal your block, you still get it because it's when you're attempting to block with it. It's just so strong. And yeah, into all the aggro matchups, this came in on the draw every time, and then came right back out on the play because I wanted to. On the draw, you just want to make sure you get to your turn 2, and this is a great way to do that. But on the play, if they're getting to their turn 2, something has gone horrifically wrong. So we don't want them to get to their turn 2 at all. If we're going first. And then the last card on my sideboard, this is one. It's a card that I think not everyone would necessarily have on their radar, but the first retro event that I ever did. I mean, I've done well at some of the regional ones, but I went to the Stark Dark event in Jacksonville, and I scrubbed out of the main event, but I did top 4 the retro event with Stone Man. And Stone Man is a character that says, basically, he plays a bunch of responses on his character that make all your moves 0 damage. He assembles this Rube Goldberg machine of responses that make all your moves 0 damage forever. And so now that I've played that deck, and I know how messed up it is, every deck I build is going to have an answer for Stone Man in the sideboard. So I chose I think It's probably tied between this and Bang for the single best, in air quotes, answer to Stone Man. Um, is a 5-2. It is a 2 check. So, if you're siding these in, and that's part of the reason why my curve is built this way, is that if you're siding these in, you got to be aware you're putting 2s in your deck. You got to play just a little differently. Um, and it's a 5 high 6, powerful 4, deadlock stun 4. It's only got one ability, enhance. For the rest of this combat phase, your opponent must lose 4 health as an additional cost to play responsibilities. So, essentially, every time they would want to respond to give your move minus some damage, they have to lose 4 health to do it. That's not worth it. That's just not worth it. It basically seals the character if they're playing Stone Man. And there's plenty of decks that this works super well into. My top 4 match was against Taisei, and game 3, I go first form Hellgate Executioner. And Taisei's a character, he only has 2 HP, but he has a response that says, before you would die, you heal to full. Kind of like how Ghidorah works, but instead of a static, it's a response. But he only has 2 HP to start with. So you can't pay the cost to use the Taisei response. So he just becomes 2 HP. I got to go, here's a 5 high for 6. He blocks it, and I see here's a gauge move, make it a throw. It definitely deals at least 2 damage. So, yeah, this card, it came in once. It's come in from my sideboard once in, I want to say, the, let's see, 6, 10, 13 matches, or 15. I've played about 15 matches with this deck in total. And it came in one of them, and I would still play 4. It is so strong. And yeah, that's the deck. Like I said, I think the 2 cards I'd consider putting in the deck are Final Wars and Military Airship. And Confronting Jeddah, maybe. There's plenty of good ones on Evil. I think Retro as a format is kind of the if you had to describe Retro in one phrase, it would be, you'd be amazed how many good ones I'm not playing. I think if you were to just sit down and I talked about with Rodan, if you wanted to sit down and put one of every playable card in Rodan, you'd probably end up with like 120 card deck in a standard deck. If you wanted to sit down and build an Evil deck and put one of every playable Evil card in your deck, you'd end up with an easy 400 card deck. There's so many cards that are like, oh yeah, this is pretty good, and you've got to pick the best of the best, and it is really hard. It is really hard, and I definitely don't. Obviously, by saying there's changes I would make, I don't think I necessarily had the perfect version of this deck, and part of that is because there's so many cards legal. But yeah, this was wow. We almost made it to an hour. I truly did not think it would take this long. But I'm glad I get to keep my brand. But yeah, I do want to make some more retro content in the future, some that's more like beginner friendly, kind of like an intro to retro on different symbols. I suppose if you have an interest in that and have a specific symbol that you'd like to start with, let me know in the comments, and I will go through and try and find all the good ones to say, like, if you want to start building, like, you got a favorite character on your favorite symbol and you want to start building a retro deck, here's some cards you want to know about. And I'll probably also put together a video of, like, when you're playing retro, these are the cards you want to know your opponents might be playing. But yeah. If you want to talk about retro at any point, feel free to add me on any of the Discords at Jet, Jett Jaguar. And if you ever need to borrow retro cards for an event, and we've interacted like one time, if I think you're cool, feel free to reach out to me and be like, hey, by the way, I would love to be able to borrow some retro cards for this event. If I'm not playing them, I am normally more than happy to loan out my retro stuff. I love this format a lot. It's ridiculous in all the great ways. The power level is so ludicrously through the roof, and yet also it's still so UniVersus. It is so much fun to me, to all the crazy stuff you could do that's both good and funny. Um, it's just I like retro a lot, and I would love for more people to play retro. At Louisville, the retro event had almost 60 players. I would love for that to be every regional. It is I like this format a lot, and I would love for more people to play it. So yeah, if you've got any retro questions, I would love to answer them. So but yeah, this was my winning deck profile. Thank you for watching.